To wrap up our seminar, let's welcome Al Munoz of the General Services Administration. Hey Al, thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for having me, John.
To get started, can you give us a little background on your role at GSA and what you'll be sharing with our viewers?
Sure, so I currently work special projects for GSA, and that means a couple of different things, but my primary role is being embedded with the Technology Transformation Service and the team over at 18F.
Fantastic. So in an innovation group, what's the most important lesson for new practitioners in the acquisition field?
So there's a lot of things to think about and to be aware of when you start going down the road of doing something different, whether it's innovative IT or digital services or even strategic sourcing or category management. There's a lot of things to think about and be aware of, but the most important thing that I've found is just the need to educate. The need to talk to everybody that's going to be involved in the process from start to end and get them a comfort level, a level of familiarity with what it is that you're going to be doing so that everybody can move things along and you don't unnecessarily delay your projects, stopping to explain things that otherwise the people involved would already know. And some examples of that have been council, for example, budget and finance, the CFO organization, vendors in particular have been very interested to see what the government is thinking and what the government is contemplating doing. So there's been some education that's been needed on that side as well. But also for the CORs, the contracting team, the other folks that are going to be administering these contracts, there's a real need to have a shared understanding among all the members of the acquisition team, both sides, or all three sides I should say, the vendor, the technical staff, and the contracting staff, so that when you start going down the road of doing this, everybody has a common understanding, a common foundation for what it is that you're trying to accomplish.
Very good. What are some of the initial reactions to this wave of innovation we've been talking about throughout this seminar?
So there's been some pushback. I think practitioners, anytime you do something new, you can expect that there's going to be some pushback. And what I've found is that a lot of it is very well founded. Some of the concerns that have been raised by the vendor community, for example, are things that we just didn't think of when we started doing innovative things. We had the same experience when we started down the road of doing strategic sourcing and category management. Vendors didn't quite understand what we were getting at. There's always the commercial explanation for what strategic sourcing or category management or digital services is, and then there's the government explanation of what that is. And vendors have a real need to understand what that is if they're going to deliver that value back to the government. And there's going to be a little bit of, we've been there and done that. We heard that a lot with strategic sourcing. We're hearing it now with digital services and agile and some of modular contracting, some of the other techniques that we're trying right now. We tried this 5 or 10 years ago or 15 or 20 years ago and it didn't work, or the FAR got in our way, or some other branch got in our way, or some other barricade got in our way and we weren't able to make it stick. So you're going to hear a little bit of that. So just be prepared for that. That doesn't take away at all from your message. It doesn't take away at all from what you're trying to accomplish and do for the American public.
Great. What should contracting teams watch out for when trying to do things more efficiently or innovatively?
Well, one of the things that you have to keep in mind when you're doing something that's different, when you're doing things that maybe your agency, your contracting office has never done before, is that you're still going to have to be aware of and follow the rules, compliance issues. If you're talking about doing IT, it doesn't really matter how new or cool that IT is. There are still things like 508 accessibility, cybersecurity, FITARA compliance. There are still things that you're going to have to be conscious of for doing things the way that the government needs them to be done legitimately. One thing that I would caution is that there's no real good reason to break the rules, right? There are some dogma, right, around the way that we do acquisition in the government that definitely does need to be broken. That's definitely something that we should make a conscious effort to even shatter, just destroy it, and have another approach. What we're doing is trying to be innovative, and we should definitely just break away from that groove that we tend to get into when it comes to acquisition. But you still have to follow the rules, right? You still have to follow the FAR. And what I would say about that is just breaking the law is not particularly innovative, right? Don't go so far off the page that you're getting cross-threaded with the regulations, with the Anti-Deficiency Act or any part of the FAR that has requirements for the contracting officer to follow, you're still going to need to do those things. And where you add value on the contracting team is helping the innovators, right? Helping the technologists, helping the vendors wend their way through that process and get to an effective contract at the end of the day.
What are the things then contracting teams should consider when trying something new? It seems contracting teams are being told to work faster, do things differently, and to take some quote-unquote risks, but there's still the FAR.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is definitely the impression that I'm seeing from my side, that not only are we being asked to do things much more quickly, but we're also being asked to do things that are very different. So it's a combination of it's different and we want to do it quickly. So there's some risk involved in that. And I think it pays for the acquisition team to take a moment and just think about what those risks are and assess what those risks might be. We talk in acquisition about the risk of protest, or we talk about the risk of the money going to something that doesn't accomplish what it was intended to accomplish. But there are other risks involved in innovating. Certainly when you're talking about IT and digital services, cybersecurity, for example, is a risk that you should be aware of. There are other risks out there, and it doesn't really matter what you're doing. If it's IT or professional services, or if it's strategic sourcing or category management, there are different sets of risks involved in each one of those new methods of doing things in acquisition. And it will be worth your time to take a few moments and to talk about that with your vendors, talk about it with counsel, talk about it with the acquisition team and the technologists and the technology that you're trying to bring into the government.
So be innovative, but be smart. That's great, Al. Thanks for joining us and sharing these great tips to help our audience implement innovative ideas and solutions at their agencies.
Thanks again for having me, John.